They might look like ordinary quarters, the kind you'd use for parking or coffee, but some of them are worth more than gold. Hidden in plain sight, a few Washington quarters hold minting secrets, rare metal compositions, and striking errors that have turned pocket change into pure treasure. Every coin has a story, and the next quarter you spend could be the one collectors dream about. It looked just like every other coin you've seen 1,000 times before. A 1995 D Washington quarter. The same face, the same eagle, the same shine. But what if I told you that hidden among millions of these ordinary-looking quarters are a few that have made collectors stop, stare, and pay thousands of dollars, even up to $12,650 for a single one? By 1995, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned into the modern clad era. The silver days were long gone, and copper-nickel coins ruled every pocket. Yet even in this age of precision machinery and quality control, the Denver Mint, known for its D mark, made some mistakes that turned a few ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. Most people think post-1980 coins aren't worth much, but collectors know better. Some of the rarest Washington quarters of the 1990s came from 1995, and a few of them have fetched jaw-dropping prices at auction. It all started when sharp-eyed collectors began noticing unusual features, missing designs, double strikes, and strange planchet errors that defied logic. One of the most famous discoveries is the 1995 D Washington quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet. This shouldn't even exist. All quarters by then were supposed to be copper-nickel. But somehow, a leftover silver blank from a commemorative coin run made its way into the presses. The result? A quarter that weighs 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams. And it sold for an astonishing $12,650 at auction. One collector's curiosity literally turned into a 5-figure payday. Then came another kind of mistake, the off-center strike errors. These happen when the coin blank isn't properly seated in the press, causing part of the design to be missing. A 1995 D off-center quarter showing about 30% of the planchet blank sold for $2,990. Another, with an even more dramatic misalignment, reached $3,500. The imperfect ones became perfect examples of minting history gone wrong. And then there's the double die variety, one of the most sought-after types of error. On some 1995 D quarters, you can see faint doubling in the lettering, Liberty and In God We Trust. The doubling is subtle but distinct under magnification, and collectors prize it because it's real, rare, and traceable to a minting die error. Coins with this variety in high-grade MS-67 condition have sold for $1,000 to $1,500. Even the regular strike, if flawless and graded MS-68, has been auctioned for $2,880. What makes the 1995 D quarter especially fascinating is how unpredictable it is. Most of them are worth face value, just 25 cents, but a tiny fraction hold mysteries that can change someone's entire perception of modern coinage. You might find one that's missing part of its clad layer, exposing the red copper core beneath. These are called missing clad layer errors, and they've sold for $1,100 to $1,800 depending on the severity. Others show multiple strike marks or partial collar strikes where the coin's rim doesn't form correctly. And those too can bring thousands. Now, you might be thinking, how would I even know if I have one of these? It starts with awareness and attention to detail. First, check the weight. Use a digital scale that reads to 2 decimal places. A normal clad coin weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver or wrong planchet error will be heavier. Then check the edges. A clad coin should show that familiar copper line sandwiched between silver-gray metal. If the edge is completely gray or has a missing layer, take a closer look. And finally, check the strike quality. If the letters look doubled, blurry or slightly out of sync, that's a strong sign of a double die or misalignment. The 1995 D quarter teaches something powerful about modern minting. Even in a high-tech, fully industrialized process, perfection is impossible. Every machine slip, every leftover blank, every tiny error creates an entirely new chapter in numismatic history. And that's what makes coin collecting so addictive. These small mistakes become massive opportunities for those who know what they're looking for. This coin also represents a turning point, the era when modern coins began gaining collector respect again. For years, people ignored anything made after 1964, but the discovery of transitional and error coins like the 1995 D proved that modern quarters could be just as valuable and fascinating as older silver ones. It reminded collectors that rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about the odds. So the next time you're holding a 1995 D Washington quarter, don't just glance at it, study it. Check the weight, the details, the edges, the shine, because you never know. Your ordinary change might be the next coin to rewrite modern minting history. And if you're serious about discovering more of these real stories, not rumors, not hype, but proven facts backed by real auction records, you're in the right place. Subscribe to Rare Coin Collecting. It looked like a regular 1968 quarter, until experts realized it carried the wrong metal, the wrong mint mark, and a story that shook U.S. coin history. What made this one worth over $10,000? In 1968, America was in transition, and so were its coins. In 1968, America was in transition, and so were its coins. The nation had just gone through a silver crisis, and the mint was changing everything about how quarters were made. But buried in that change came one of the most surprising modern-era discoveries: the 1968 Washington quarter, a coin most people overlook, but collectors now hunt with laser focus. Let's rewind the story. From 1965 through 1967, the U.S. Mint removed all mint marks from coins to slow down hoarding during the silver shortage. Collectors were frustrated. No P, no D, no S. But in 1968, mint marks returned. That year, coins from Denver again carried their familiar D, and the San Francisco Mint started striking proof quarters with an S. Here's the twist. While regular clad quarters were minted by the millions, some proof coins from San Francisco were struck in extraordinary condition, and a handful contained errors that changed numismatic history. Most quarters that year were copper-nickel clad, but every so often, one appears struck on a leftover 90% silver planchet, a blank that somehow got mixed from pre-1965 production. Those pieces weigh slightly more, ring differently, and when authenticated, command breathtaking prices. In one documented case, a 1968 S Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet graded by NGC sold for $11,500 at auction. Another 1968 D error quarter with full lustrous detail, graded MS67, sold for $4,560, and high-end proof strikes with deep cameo contrast have reached over $5,000. So what makes these so valuable? First, error rarity. Transitional or wrong planchet strikes from 1968 are nearly impossible to find. Many were melted or went unnoticed for decades. Second, condition. Regular circulation coins often come scratched or worn, but those few that survived in mint state or proof deep cameo are stunning. Mirror-like surfaces, frosted reliefs, razor-sharp details. Third, history. 1968 marked the return of mint marks and the first modern proof coins produced at San Francisco. That connection to change makes every high-grade or error piece a symbol of the mint's evolution. Now, imagine holding a coin that looks completely ordinary, a quarter you'd spend on parking. But under magnification, you see doubled letters on Liberty, a shifted mint mark, or that faint, unmistakable silver hue. That's when you realize you're not holding pocket change. You're holding a slice of numismatic history that could be worth thousands. Let's talk numbers for perspective. 1968 S-Proof DCAM Deep Cameo Quarters graded PR69 have sold up to $5,040. 1968 DMS67 Regular Strikes fetched $4,560. And those rare 1968 S Silver Planchet Errors recorded sales over $11,500. For a 25-cent coin, that's beyond extraordinary. Collectors love these coins not just for their beauty, but because they represent survival, the bridge between the old silver era and the modern clad age. Each one tells a story of the mint's experimental phase, where even a tiny error could create an instant legend. So, next time you see a 1968 quarter, check the mint mark. If it's an S, inspect its shine. Proof coins have mirror fields. If it's a D, check for any unusual tone or weight. You never know. Yours could be one of those few that slipped through history's cracks. And remember, in the world of coins, the smallest details can turn a 25-cent piece into a 5-figure discovery. If you want to learn how to spot the difference between ordinary coins and hidden treasures like the 1968 Washington quarter, subscribe to Rare Coin Collecting. We reveal the real history, the real numbers, and the secrets every serious collector should know. No hype, no myths, just pure numismatic truth.
It's one of those coins almost everyone has seen, the 1982 D Washington quarter. It looks ordinary, modern, and everywhere. But the truth is, this single coin has shocked collectors again and again, with rare examples selling for as much as $10,200 at auction. Yes, a 25-cent piece from 1982 that someone could have easily spent on a soda ended up worth more than a bar of gold. And once you know the story behind it, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. In 1982, the U.S. Mint was going through a chaotic transition. The economy was struggling. The Mint had stopped producing proof and uncirculated coin sets for collectors, and everything that came out of the presses that year was made strictly for circulation. That means nearly every 1982 D quarter was spent, tossed around, scratched, and worn down. Very few survived in untouched mint condition, and that's where the value starts. The Denver Mint struck 480 million quarters that year, each made from copper-nickel-clad metal. No silver, no mint sets, just raw circulation coins. But because the Mint was running its machines at full speed, errors slipped through. Some were minor, but others were incredible. And they're what turned an ordinary 1982 D quarter into a small fortune. One of the rarest examples ever found is the 1982 D quarter struck on a 90% silver planchette, a leftover blank that was never supposed to be used. These silver-struck quarters weigh 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, and their color looks slightly whiter and richer in tone. When authenticated, these pieces can sell for $6,000 to $10,200, depending on condition. Another valuable mistake from that year is the off-center strike, where part of the design is missing because the blank planchette wasn't perfectly aligned during minting. The more dramatic the off-center shift, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes. Well-centered 1982 D quarters might be worth face value, but an off-center strike of 40% or more can bring between $1,200 and $2,500 at auction, just because of that visible minting error. And then there's one of collectors' favorite types, the double die obverse. If you look closely at "In God We Trust" or "Liberty," you might notice faint doubling or shadowing on the letters. These subtle mechanical misalignments are caused by die hubbing issues, and they can add serious value. A sharp, clearly doubled example in mint state condition can reach $1,000 or more, depending on how visible the doubling is. But perhaps the most astonishing discovery linked to the 1982 D quarter isn't an error at all. It's the perfect strike. Because no collector's sets were made that year, finding a flawless coin straight from the Denver Mint is extremely difficult. The few surviving pieces graded MS-68 or higher are among the rarest modern clad quarters known. One such specimen sold for just over $1,880, proving that quality alone can turn a coin from pocket change into a payday. Another fascinating variety is the missing clad layer error, when one side of the coin is missing its outer nickel layer, exposing the copper core underneath. It creates a two-tone red and silver look that's instantly recognizable. These errors typically sell for $600 to $1,500, especially when the exposed copper covers more than half the surface. The 1982 D Washington quarter is a reminder that modern coins can still hold old-world value. Even though silver was gone and mint marks were routine, the human element, the machinery, the pressure, the mistakes, made each coin a little different. Every flaw tells a story, and every rare survivor adds another layer to America's numismatic history. So before you spend that 1982 D quarter, take a closer look, weigh it, study the details under bright light, search for doubling, off-center strikes, or that missing clad layer. Because one of those coins may be sitting in a jar, a drawer, or your change right now could be the next one to break the record. And for the collectors, investors, and treasure hunters who never stop searching for what others overlook, this is rare coin collecting, where every coin has a story, and every story could be worth a fortune.
It's easy to overlook a 1974 Washington quarter. After all, billions were made, and they've been circulating for decades. But what if I told you that buried among these ordinary-looking coins are a few that have shocked collectors and auction houses alike, some selling for as much as $10,000 or more? It sounds unbelievable, but it's 100% real. The 1974 quarter might just be one of those modern-era sleepers that turn an everyday pocket find into a collector's dream. By 1974, America was deep in the copper-nickel clad era. Silver quarters were long gone, but the mint was experimenting, testing, and occasionally making unexpected errors. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were striking hundreds of millions of quarters that year, preparing for the big switch to the bicentennial design in 1976. And in that chaos, a few incredible mistakes slipped through. One of the most famous and valuable of these is the 1974 Washington quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet, a leftover blank from the 1970 to 1974 Eisenhower silver dollar production. These silver planchets were never supposed to be used for quarters, but when one accidentally found its way into a press, it created a modern rarity that collectors still dream about. If your 1974 quarter weighs 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, you might be holding a silver planchet error worth $10,000 or more. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, quarters struck on nickel, penny, or even foreign coin blanks. These unusual mistakes can fetch between $1,000 and $5,000, depending on which planchet they were struck on and how complete the design appears. One verified 1974 D quarter struck on a 1-cent blank sold for over $2,500 because of its bizarre golden red color and undersized strike. Another sought-after version is the 1974 D double die obverse. If you look closely at the word Liberty, or In God We Trust, you might notice faint doubling. The letters appear slightly overlapped or shadowed. These are caused by die misalignments during hubbing. Though subtle, this error can dramatically raise the coin's value. High-grade examples in MS-67 condition have been auctioned for more than $1,200, and that's for a coin most people still treat as spare change. But even without errors, the 1974 D Washington quarter can hold surprising value in pristine mint state. The Denver Mint struck over $353 million that year, yet perfect survivors are incredibly rare. Most coins were tossed into circulation, picked up scratches, or lost their luster long ago.
But when one surfaces with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details, and blazing original shine, graded MS-68, it can command $3,500 to $4,000 at auction. Collectors also hunt for the full-strike examples, especially those with bold details on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers on the reverse. These coins show the mint's craftsmanship at its best, and they're becoming harder to find every year. There's also a strange category of missing clad layer errors, where one side of the coin has lost its outer nickel coating, exposing the copper core beneath. The result is a two-tone appearance, silver-gray on one side and reddish-orange on the other. These fascinating minting accidents have sold for $800 to $1,500, depending on condition. The story of the 1974 quarter is really the story of a transition, a moment right before the United States Mint overhauled its design for the bicentennial celebration. The machinery was being tested, the dies were changing, and errors were more likely than usual. Every one of these mistakes tells a tiny piece of that story, preserved forever in metal. Most people think only silver coins are worth money, but coins like the 1974 Washington quarter prove that even clad coins, if struck under rare circumstances, can bring huge returns. The secret is knowing what to look for. A small weight difference, an off-center strike, a doubled word, a missing layer. Any of these could be the clue that your ordinary quarter isn't ordinary at all. So the next time you're holding a 1974 quarter, don't just toss it in a jar. Weigh it. Inspect it. Study the details. Because a coin that looks just like the one in your hand has already made someone thousands of dollars richer. And who knows, maybe the next discovery will come from your pocket. And if you want to stay ahead of every new find, every hidden minting secret, and every real collector's story, keep watching Rare Coin Collecting. This is where we uncover the truth behind America's most overlooked treasures, one coin at a time. It looked like a normal 25-cent piece, something you'd never think twice about. But the 1966 Washington quarter hides one of the most fascinating stories in American coin history. A story born from confusion, change, and a few incredible mistakes that turned pocket change into treasure. In 1966, America was still recovering from what collectors call the silver crisis. The year before, the U.S. Mint had completely removed silver from quarters and dimes for the first time in history. The goal was to stop people from hoarding coins for their silver content. But the transition wasn't smooth. Millions of older silver coins were still being circulated, and the new ones, made of copper and nickel, looked almost identical. People were skeptical, suspicious even. And to make matters worse, the Mint had made another drastic change. They completely removed mint marks. No D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, nothing. Every quarter from 1965 to 1967 looked the same, no matter where it was made. The idea was to discourage collectors from hoarding new coins by mint location, but it only made the confusion worse. Collectors couldn't tell where the coins came from, and the Mint's new copper-nickel blend caused endless problems during production. Striking pressure, planchet quality, and metal bonding all led to visible errors, off-center strikes, missing clad layers, and weak impressions. These mistakes made 1966 one of the most unpredictable years for the Washington Quarter series. Among the millions produced, a few extraordinary errors slipped through, and some of them have shocked even veteran numismatists. Imagine holding a coin that was never supposed to exist. A 1966 quarter accidentally struck on a leftover silver planchet. It's nearly impossible, yet a handful of examples have surfaced, verified by professional graders. They weigh about 6.25 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, a small but crucial difference. These transitional silver errors have sold for huge amounts. One example, graded MS-67, fetched over $12,000, and another in gem condition was valued above $9,000. And that's not all. Regular clad 1966 quarters with dramatic errors have also shocked auction houses.
A 1966 quarter struck 15% off-center once sold for $3,600. Another, missing its outer clad layer and showing the pure copper core beneath, went for $2,300. Even a perfectly struck regular 1966 quarter graded MS 67 Plus by PCGS brought $2,115. Not bad for a coin most people still spend without a second thought. The real mystery is how many of these silver-struck or major error coins are still out there. The 1966 quarters didn't carry mint marks, and the mint didn't release official records detailing how many transitional errors might have escaped. That means there's a real chance some of these pieces are still hiding in plain sight, in old change jars, in family drawers, even inside bank rolls that haven't been opened in decades. So how can you tell if your 1966 quarter could be worth thousands? Start with the basics. First, check the weight. A normal copper-nickel quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver one will read closer to 6.25 grams. Use a precise digital scale. That 0.5 gram difference could change everything. Then, check the edge. If you see a bright copper stripe running along the rim, it's just a regular clad coin. But if the edge looks solid gray and metallic without that reddish tone, you may have something rare. And finally, the sound test. Tap it gently on a hard surface. Silver rings like a bell. Clad quarters sound dull and short. That one detail has helped countless collectors uncover silver errors no one else noticed. The 1966 Washington quarter isn't just another coin. It's a snapshot of a nation in transition. It was minted during a time of chaos, when America was balancing tradition with modern economics. The mint was experimenting, the public was doubting, and errors slipped through under pressure. That's what makes this coin so fascinating. It's not valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it wasn't supposed to survive this way. It tells the story of a system struggling to modernize, a nation moving on from silver, and a few miraculous mistakes that refused to disappear. Even today, when a rare 1966 quarter surfaces, it stirs the same reaction: disbelief. How could something so ordinary hide so much history? But that's what makes collecting coins so addictive. The thrill isn't just in the metal, it's in the mystery. And the 1966 quarter is one of the last true mysteries of the silver era. So next time you come across a 1966 Washington quarter, don't pass it off as just another old coin. Weigh it. Look at its edge. Listen to its ring. Because there's a small chance you're holding one of the few survivors from a turning point in American minting history. A quarter that connects two eras and defies the odds. It looked like every other quarter in your pocket until a collector put it on a scale. And the number that appeared broke every rule of US mint history. In 1965, silver was supposed to be gone forever, but this quarter told a different story. 1965 wasn't just another year for American coins. It was the year everything changed. For nearly 2 centuries, US coins had been made from real silver. But by the early 1960s, silver prices had started to rise fast. People began hoarding coins, melting them for profit, and the nation suddenly faced a massive coin shortage. To stop the crisis, President Lyndon B. Johnson made a historic move. He ordered the US Mint to stop making silver dimes and quarters and replace them with a cheaper copper-nickel composition. From that moment on, no silver quarters were supposed to exist. But deep inside the mint, something unexpected happened. Amid the chaos of changing materials, a few leftover silver planchets from 1964 were accidentally mixed in with the new copper-nickel ones. The presses struck them with 1965 dies, creating a few quarters that weren't supposed to exist. They were 90% silver in a world that had just abandoned it. For years, these coins circulated unnoticed. People spent them, pocketed them, and forgot about them, never realizing they were holding pieces of minting history. Then one day, a collector put his 1965 quarter on a scale and froze. A normal clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, but this one read 6.25 grams, the exact weight of a silver coin. That small difference exposed one of the mint's biggest transitional blunders. The silver quarter had slipped through time and into circulation, hiding in plain sight. Word spread fast, and soon collectors across the country were weighing every 1965 quarter they could find. The hunt for silver became real. When the first silver 1965 quarter hit the auction block, it made history again. A genuine 1965 Washington quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet, graded MS-68 by PCGS, sold for an incredible $43,200. Another one, in lower condition, brought $7,050. Even the regular high-grade clad versions, in pristine MS-67 condition, have sold for $1,880. A coin worth just 25 cents was now selling for the price of a luxury car. These coins became the crown jewels of modern minting errors, proof that even a machine-run system can still make miracles by mistake. Finding one isn't easy, but it's possible. Every 1965 quarter looks identical, because that year, the mint removed all mint marks. There's no D, no S, nothing to separate one from another. But 3 clues can reveal the truth. First, the weight. If it reads about 6.25 grams, that's your biggest sign. Second, the edge. Clad quarters show a copper stripe, but a silver one will have a solid silver-gray rim. And third, the sound. Drop it gently on wood or glass. A clad coin gives a dull thud, but silver rings like a small bell. Those who know that sound never forget it. But silver errors aren't the only reason 1965 quarters are special. That year produced some remarkable varieties. Off-center strikes, double die errors, missing clad layers, coins that sold for thousands. Off-center strikes have sold between $1,200 and $2,500. Double die errors, where the image or lettering appears doubled, have sold for up to $5,000. And missing clad layer quarters, where part of the copper-nickel surface peeled away, have sold for $1,000 to $3,000. Even without silver, the year 1965 created a treasure hunt that still isn't over. The 1965 Washington quarter is more than just a coin. It's a piece of American history frozen in metal. It marks the end of the Silver Age and the beginning of the modern era of coinage. It represents a moment of national change, a time when the country was forced to let go of real silver for practicality and cost. Yet one small mistake kept that legacy alive. Each surviving silver 1965 quarter is a whisper from the past, a reminder that even in an age of mass production, history can still slip through the cracks. So the next time you find a 1965 quarter in your pocket, don't ignore it. Weigh it, examine it, listen to it. Because you might be holding a coin that defied US Mint history, a coin that wasn't supposed to exist, but did. And if you're serious about discovering more real coin stories, the kind that reveal truth, not hype, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to Rare Coin Collecting, where every episode uncovers the real mysteries behind America's rarest coins. Because sometimes history hides in plain sight, right in the change sitting in your hand. It looks like just another quarter. A 1967 Washington quarter you could easily overlook in your pocket change. No silver, no mint mark, nothing flashy. But here's the truth. Some 1967 quarters have shocked collectors, fetching auction prices up to $8,000, all because of a few extraordinary mistakes hidden among millions of ordinary coins. That's why every serious collector still checks their 1967 quarters carefully, because these little pieces of American history are full of surprises. Now, let's go back for a second. The year was 1967, right in the middle of one of the most chaotic times in US coin production history. The nation had just faced the great coin shortage of the 1960s, caused by people hoarding silver coins after the mint switched to copper-nickel clad in 1965. To meet the massive demand, the US Mint stopped putting mint marks on coins from 1965 to 1967. That means your 1967 quarter doesn't say D or S, but that doesn't mean they're all the same. During this period, the mint was working under heavy pressure. Billions of coins were being produced, and that's when mistakes slipped through. Big ones. Some 1967 quarters were struck on leftover silver planchets from before 1965. These rare transitional errors are easy to miss, but if your quarter weighs 6.25 grams instead of 5.67, you might have a silver planchet error worth $5,000 to $8,000. Then there are the off-center strikes, when the coin wasn't perfectly aligned during minting, leaving part of the design missing and part of the blank planchet visible. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value. A 1967 quarter struck 40% off-center once sold for over $1,500, simply because of its striking visual appeal. Another rare and valuable find is the double-die obverse, where words like liberty or in God we trust show slight doubling. These coins look ordinary at first glance, but under magnification, the letters appear shadowed or overlapping. Even moderate examples can fetch $500 to $1,000, while sharper ones in mint state have brought over $2,000 at auction. And then we have one of the most unusual types of minting errors, the clipped planchet. Picture a quarter with a small curved piece missing from the rim, like someone took a bite out of it. These are caused when blank metal sheets are misfed during cutting. A 1967 clipped planchet quarter can range between $250 and $800, depending on how cleanly it was struck and its condition. But the real beauty of this coin lies in its condition. Even without errors, high-grade examples of the 1967 quarter, those graded MS-67 or higher, are extremely hard to find. The mint didn't sell uncirculated sets in 1967. Instead, they released special mint sets, SMS. These coins were struck with better-than-average detail and finish, but not quite proof quality. A 1967 special mint set quarter with deep, mirror-like surfaces can sell for $1,000 or more, while ultra-rare SMS coins graded SP68 or SP69 have reached $4,000 in recent sales. Collectors also love the story behind the 1967 SMS coins. They mark a rare moment when the mint tried to bridge the gap between proof coins and regular circulation strikes. Each one has a distinct satin-like surface and sharp details on Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. If you ever find one with flawless luster, no marks, and crisp rims, you might be holding one of the finest surviving examples from that experimental era. The 1967 Washington quarter may not carry a mint mark, but it carries a story of transition, innovation, and accident. It captures a turning point in American coinage when the mint was trying to win back public trust and adapt to a new, silverless age. And that's what makes it so fascinating to collectors today. So before you dismiss a 1967 quarter as just another old coin, take a closer look. Weigh it. Examine it under light. Look for doubling, missing layers, or off-center strikes, because one tiny detail could mean the difference between 25 cents and thousands of dollars. And if you love discovering the real stories behind U.S. coins, the truth, the hidden errors, and the record-breaking finds, then you're in the right place. This is Rare Coin Collecting, where we uncover the coins most people ignore and show you why the next valuable find could be hiding in your own pocket.